Hello, colleagues. Oh, David. Oh, he's gone. Hi, colleagues, and good afternoon and welcome. For those who don't know me, I'm Ian Wright, MD of the Disruptive Innovators Network. And if I was in a big room now, I'd be saying it's so lovely to see so many of you here, but clearly I'm not. But I have been around the tables earlier on, and I can see there's a lot of people have actually logged on. So welcome. If you've not been to a DIN meeting before, this is what they're like, slightly chaotic, but full of experience and content. And this is the first time we've done one live on this particular platform. So I've got just a couple of slides just to share with you how to get the best out of this experience. And I'm going to share my screen now. There we go. Right, so you're all here. Hopefully you've managed to, as I say, get onto the platform. As I say, it's very much a learning experience for us, as well as the CIH, and Diana from the CIH is looking after us today, so thank you for that. It does replicate as far as practical, actually being in the room. So if you are on a table and you see people, double click on them and you'll be able to get through and talk to your colleagues. Again, normally we have a full day for this, but for this particular session, we've got 75 minutes, of which there's going to be quite a bit of discussion time, an update from myself, but hopefully as well, you'll hang around at the end as well and be able to spend some time networking and talking with colleagues as well. I would encourage you, as many of you as possible, to switch on your webcams, and we're going to try and bring as many of you up to the stage. If you've got questions or you want to share a particular point, then please do so as well. Let's just have some fun doing this. As I say, CIH are kindly running this. We're working in partnership with them on a number of events now. We have got some facilities for you to ask questions, and I'll quickly walk through and show you a few slides to how to do that. If you do want to ask a question, you basically right there where that's raise your hands in the air like you don't care and put it up there. You can see how pleased Kath is to put her hand up in the air there. Once you do that, that will come through to myself, and I'll know that you wish to ask a question, and then we can ask Diana to bring you up onto the stage, and you will appear in all your video glory with your bookcase. If you'd rather sort of just text questions, you can just use the old-fashioned way of typing, and those questions will appear where there'll be an opportunity for us to see what questions are going through. And I believe you can also sort of vote those questions up and down. So if it's a particularly pertinent one that you agree with, you can actually vote for that, and that will come to the top of the list as well. If you wish to view the presentations in full screen, as I say, I have got some slides for my presentation. Then the 4 arrows in the top corner will allow you to view it as if you're viewing a PowerPoint presentation, and I'm there in the room with you. And I think that's it, really. Like I say, I don't think you can break anything. If there are some particular problems and you need to sort of dial back in, don't worry, please do so. Remember, Chrome is by far the best platform to access this this experience on. So hopefully that will walk through has helped you. I'm going to stop sharing those slides for now, and hopefully go back to the room. Okay, everybody okay? Right, I nearly went and did some this is where the Wi-Fi, this is the Wi-Fi code, and here's the no fire alarms are planned, and we've got a toilet just next door if anybody feels the need, but obviously we won't need to do that anymore now, which is always good. It's always a bit embarrassing doing those things. So as I say, we've got about 75, well, an hour now in terms of going through the first DIN meeting. This was partly what we were planning to do at the spring meeting, and obviously everything went a bit pear-shaped from March. So this is going to allow us to get hopefully back in the groove and learn what it's like to run a virtual event like this. So please let us have your feedback, let us have any comments, so that we can get it right for future sessions. We've got a lot of these planned. So we've got our first panel session now, and what we wanted to try and do here was to bring everybody to the stage. Yeah, David, sorry, Diana, can we bring everybody up onto the stage, please?
Hi.
Hello, everybody.
Hey. Oh.
Nice to see you all. Yeah, somebody's just asked me, why am I dressed up like this? Well, that thing I wanted to see was a chief exec in a onesie, so I thought I'd make a bit of an effort to leave on my top half. So thank you very much for coming along. In my top right, we've got Amanda Garrard from Berneslai Homes. Bottom right, I am Castle from Johnnie Johnson.
Hello.
And David Dawn from RHP.
Hi.
Hi, David. And okay, I hope you guys are all okay with the platform and everything now. And we've got you along today because I think we've done a sort of a bit of sessions with your sort of leadership teams, and I think we was really keen in this session to sort of get your views and have a bit of discussion about how your organisations and how you as a leader have responded to the COVID crisis, and then in the second piece, sort of concentrate on, right, okay, well, what's coming next? Where is your thinking as leaders? And we'll share that and hopefully debate that with our colleagues from the network. So perhaps sort of just start with that first question, really. Amanda, starting with yourself. I mean, what's your views? What are the lessons that you've taken from the response to COVID?
I think the first bit is how well people reacted. I think we're on uncharted territory for most people here. Well, we've never been in this sort of situation before. So to see how people initially reacted and have since responded. So I call it the 3 days that changed our lives and the way we work. I think on the Thursday we were still trying to struggle to use, we've got PCs on desk, landlines, people that weren't used to working from home. That was Thursday. By Tuesday I'd shut down the office. So I think that pace of change for me has been a really important one. But also how people have embraced that. And we talked about nudge theory before, didn't we? Well, this was jumping off the edge of the cliff, I think. So for us, it was a massive cultural change in the organisation, but one that I think people have really embraced. And I think what's come out of it is very much about people care about the services that they provide and have really responded to some of that change in technology that we need to do as well.
Excellent. And David, was your similar experience down at RHP?
Yeah, I mean, really, for me, it's been about 3 things, really. I mean, first of all, it's reminded us all, I think, about the importance during times like this to keep things really simple. So, we've really tried to focus upon just 3 things, really. First of all, keeping people safe. Secondly, maintaining essential services. And thirdly, making sure the business is safe for the medium term, and that we can emerge from this, hopefully as a stronger organisation, able to grow from this. I think the second thing for me is really about, the power of great communication, because the last few months for me has really emphasised the importance of just doing really simple human things really well. So just checking in with people, making sure they're okay, offering help and support and encouragement. And then finally, I think, for us, just keeping people purposeful and productive. So one of the things that we decided to do was not to furlough people, because we felt that, keeping people busy and working and delivering services is important both for their own well-being, but also for the health of our business. So they're really the sort of 3 things I'd say that I'd pick out in as being important for us.
And Yvonne, I mean, obviously you operate throughout sort of the country and what have you. Has that been similar for you, or have you had different challenges because you work in so many different regions?
No, I wouldn't say we've had challenges with working in regions, because we've kept it a bit like David said, keep it simple. I think that the reflections that we've had, and thank you, Ian, for doing your session with ourselves as the exec team, is there were 2 things that put us in good stead. And one was that we, every morning, we have a daily huddle anyway, and we've been doing that for the last 3.5 years as part of the way we work with a lean philosophy. So having a daily huddle meant we caught the discussions going off globally quite early. And the second one then was, we do annual business continuity exercise, real exercises where we go off site and do things. And whilst we change the membership during the time for a business continuity team, we had people that we used to dealing with a crisis, although this one was real, obviously. And so the amount of work and energy and effort, and like Amanda said, the pulling together of everybody has been phenomenal. But those two things really stood out when we reflected.
And we've talked previously about how well your teams have responded and stepped up to the challenges, and we've got some great stories, or you've captured some great stories about exceptional service and response around that. But it won't have been easy in terms of, there's not many management programs that I've been aware of that have trained you for to respond to a global pandemic. And I just wondered, what impact has this had on you as a leader? How have you sort of had to sort of reflect and change about or review what your approach within the organisation as a leader? David, could I sort of just pick that with yourself? How have you done that?
Well, yeah, I mean, for me, I found this time both incredibly challenging, actually, and hugely rewarding. I mean, fundamentally, I've needed to change my own priorities and expectations. And I think one of the things for me about that was recognising that this is a time, to keep everyone calm and focused. And to do that, you've obviously got to do the same yourself. So, I definitely had to dial it back a lot. So I've adopted a much more quieter style of leadership. And for the time being, just placed a lot of emphasis upon making human connections with people, and far less on things like strategic planning and targets. And for me, that's a big thing, really. So it's normally I'm incredibly driven and focused and all the rest of it. But the last few months has really been about, toning it down a bit, just being quieter and really thinking about people in the organisation and doing basic things really well. And fundamentally, it's meant, changing how I spend my time. So I think I spend about half the week probably just communicating with people and talking to people. And, I do a daily blog on Yammer. I do a live weekly TV broadcast of the organisation. And I do a weekly briefing for board members as a sort of staple, I guess, every week, really. I guess the final thing for me is it's just really emphasised the importance of just, paying real attention to how people are feeling across the organisation and, what support they need, and being very sensitive to what people can actually cope with and take on at this point in time.
Amanda, I mean, toning down is not a description I would ever sort of throw lightly at yourself around this, but I mean, you've obviously got some big challenges running an Almo on that as well, because obviously you've got, your partners, stakeholders within sort of the local authority. So how have you responded then as a leader in this time?
I think some of it's about pacing. I think one of the things I did learn early on is that I could work 24 hours a day and still not get everything sorted. So I think I had to give myself a bit of discipline around that. And one of the things that has helped, that we did have a WhatsApp group, the chief execs, I think all of us are on that. And that was really helpful early on to get a bit of personal support. So I think that importance of making sure you were okay, because I can't look after the organisation unless I'm okay. So I've been really disciplined about, sticking to a certain amount of hours that I work at most days, trying not to work at weekends and that sort of thing. But also giving people the permission that actually we stopped flexing. We just said, forget it. If you're home working, you're working at home, you're not home working. Important definition. You're working at home during a COVID crisis. Some of you have got care responsibilities. Some of you try to tutor your kids and do that. Some of you are doing your school meals at the same time as well. So, let's be realistic. And I think David's a bit about being calm on this, but getting relentless communication out. So relentless communication, keeping calm, and I think just pacing yourself and looking after yourself have been really important for me. And I think that getting that support of other people has been useful. I know I've used a number of different, and we've all got our own networks, and I think that's been more important than ever, I think, at this point in time.
And Yvonne, obviously your organisation does a lot in sort of the social care space, so you've had a lot of the challenges with particularly vulnerable, I would imagine a high proportion of vulnerable residents and sort of customers, and that. How have you responded?
Yeah, so certainly thinking about our vulnerable residents, we've done a lot more communication in old-fashioned style letters to make sure that everybody's got it, and that's all our tenants, every single one. So we're on our 6th communication now with residents in that old-fashioned letter style, and at the same time then trying to do much more digitally. So one of the things that I learned from a leadership style point of view was a move. You know, you start out in this in a kind of command and control, and you know, moving fast but making decisions, and then moved on to much more of a coaching style, so that other teams are driving the decisions and a part of the decisions on an operational, and that I'm there to support them on what they think on operational. So that's been quite a good reflection. On a personal point of view, I was always up at 5 o'clock in the morning, up now on the motorway, travelling to some wonderful place across the north to visit our teams or visit our residents. So now I don't, and I knew very early on that yeah, just as Amanda says, in order to lead an organisation well, you've got to be really well yourself. So I am fortunate. I'm really into coaching and all of that goes with it. So I've run coaching sessions with members of the team and management teams, and just to get them to see what their goal is that they want to do out of this sort of crisis, really, and how they might want to do something different to reflect and look at their own lives and selves and where they do work.
So last question then, around sort of, you know, the initial sort of response. Is there anything particular you would share to say, actually, this is what I would have done different, or I didn't quite sort of get this particular result? I mean, you've all mentioned about communication, and that's from all of the sessions we've ran, that's come through time and time again. Actually, communications have probably improved. But is there anything you're thinking, now you've had time to reflect, that actually I probably would have done that slightly differently, or I would have made a different call on this one? David?
Yeah. I mean, for me, I'd have communicated much faster and clearer with our residents and customers at a much earlier point in the process. So there's obviously common themes here with what's going on nationally, but for me, you know, we did a lot of work around, you know, keeping our teams and our employees and our people well informed. I think we probably could have acted a lot quicker to have told or given information to our customers about what was actually happening to services. And that was partly because we weren't entirely clear to begin with, and we weren't sure. But looking back on it, I wish we paid more attention to that initially in the first few weeks.
Yvonne?
I think something that happened to us literally only a couple of weeks ago. So before then, my answer is no. But because we're in this now, you know, for many weeks, 8, 9, 10 weeks, we were about to make a decision, and we'd actually spoken to some of our colleagues that it linked to about a decision we were going to take. And then actually what we realized is that was an emotional decision. And when we started to look in detail at the risks, the finances involved, you know, the processes, those kind of things, actually we went back to them and said, we're not now doing X. And that was a really good reflection. And I think at the time, all the exec were caught up in the emotion, and that hadn't happened at all throughout the whole of it. We've been really strong and pragmatic, and but for a reason, I think, because we're in this for a long time now, aren't we? Some of that emotion started to creep in.
Okay, and finally, Amanda.
For me, I think it's probably about not worrying about doing things differently. So I talked about that chief exec forum, and Yvonne and David will say that was just going manic. So you're getting all this information all the time. And we actually took the decision to stop gas servicing. And the context of that was we were already referring ourselves to the regulator for a compliance issue. But actually we took quite a bold step at the time to say we're not going to do that because we need some clarity on what we need to do. So for me, I think it's not been, and for all the decisions, I think we probably just got swept along with everybody else. And that might have been the council because we had to rely on ourselves with some of the decisions they were making, or it might have been the feedback and all the stuff we're getting off that CEO forum. So I think for me, it was almost give yourself a bit of time to step back and make the right decision. And don't be swept away with some of the other things that happen. A bit like Yvonne was saying about, don't do the emotional decision. Make sure it's a business decision that you're making. And when you've made it, write it down, because we're not great at doing that either. So making sure we've recorded that and the reasons for it. We've got a bit of a trail on that, was been helpful as well. But we didn't do that particularly well, but we're getting better at that now.
So taking sort of the preposition that actually people have got through that crisis stage, that survival mode, and it's turning now to sort of delivering the emergency services around that. Can we sort of spend the remaining time sort of looking at what you guys feel is what comes next? Because there are going to be some big fundamentals questions for housing providers. You will have learned an awful lot through this crisis. It will have thrown a spotlight on some areas that perhaps it wouldn't have done before. So I'd like to sort of spend a bit of time getting your views now in terms of how you think COVID is going to change housing organisations of the future. David, from RHP's perspective, you've always sort of, been at the leading edge, particularly around the adoption of new technologies and new sort of ways of working. So, from your point of view, is this going to make you accelerate, press the pedal there?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we see this as despite the awful human tragedy of the pandemic, we just see this as an absolutely golden opportunity to drive change, and be really bold by building on accelerating all the sort of ideas we've been thinking about for many years, and just to grab hold of them and start to do something with them. And for me, there are three things we're thinking about. One is about the importance of getting much closer to our customers and really, really understanding what they need and want from us going forward, and then trying to design and build an organisation around meeting those needs. And what I mean by that really is using new technology and social media to get great information and feedback from customers. And that's going to be so important, we think, because we enter into a recession, we're going to have many customers struggling to pay for even basic things. So making sure that we get our service offer spot on is going to be vital. I think that the second thing really is about a real acceleration of new technology. So we see this as a period about being really bold about applying new technology in a really radical way. So very much building upon the sort of digital offer we've been working on for a long time, but in particular also making smart technology really work in asset management. So we've been talking about it a long time and piloting various things and all the rest of it, but it feels like the moment we've now got to make this count. And the final thing, which I'm sure that people will talk about as well, really, is that clearly there's been a fundamental change in terms of how we work, and a real change in mindset from leaders about how we see work. And I think Yvonne and Amanda mentioned earlier on about the fact that going to work doesn't mean going to an office anymore, and we absolutely do not want to go back to doing that. So we want to look at ways in which we can give people a really good working experience, but at the same time set us up so we can really deliver for our customers in the most efficient way we possibly can. So I think it's a really, really exciting time, Ian, and a time to really grab the initiative and make changes happen.
Okay, Amanda, from Berneslai Home's perspective.
Well, what a great opportunity for me. So I'm a new chief exec role, and this fantastic opportunity called COVID comes up. So for me, it is building on all those things that David said, really. I think I've mentioned it before, that the pace of change, one of the things that I've got thrown back at me a few times was, oh, it's going to take us a long time to get that done. Oh, it could take 2-3 years to get a new IT system in. So gone are those excuses. So I think my challenge back to people now is we've seen the pace that we can work at to get things changed, and actually to use that as a real momentum for us, not just for sort of delivering services for our customers, but actually making sure our staff are working the most efficiently and most productively as well. 'Cause the other thing for me is it's not about the hours people are working, it's about how efficient and the outputs they're getting. And I think that's a real mindset change for a lot of people. It's actually about what you do, not how many hours you're working. So, you know, let's agree what we need to achieve, and let's focus on getting that done and work together as a group. And I think, again, some of those divides between different departments have come down because we've had to all work together to solve some of this stuff. So again, great opportunity. Let's use that to sort of say, right, as an organisation, how do we problem solve better? How do we provide better services? And how can we use that pace of change in a way that people can continue to do? Because I'm conscious that I sometimes push that a little bit too much. But there is a pace there that we need to use and emphasise and sort of take advantage of, really. So it's a different culture. I think the whole culture's changed. But I think there is a bit about making sure people are okay with that. And I think Yvonne's point about coaching, I think David's about coaching as well. That coaching style is going to be quite important as well as leaders in organisations. So I think it's really exciting, but I think there's some different ways in which we'll need to lead the organisations going forward too.
And I know when we did your leadership team, Yvonne, I mean, you know, this has caused you to question some fairly big questions within your organisation and that. Should share with us what you feel comfortable in terms of how you think this could change, you know, the way Johnnie Johnson delivers services.
Yeah, certainly. So what it's brought to us is we were just about to do an office refurb in our HQ to make it a much more dynamic, hot desking, etc. Much more modern space. What we thought, literally within the first couple of weeks, was that didn't feel right. Spending that money when we knew what we were going to go through, and so we've got 2 work streams at the moment. And we're reporting back to board on the 16th of July. One is about the service offer, because we have been doing things differently. Our independent living coordinators have had much more quality discussions with our residents. It's not just a morning call to say, hello, are you okay? It's very much, have you got your medication? Are you getting food? All those kind of things. So that's been really, really well received. So we are looking at our service offer. But the big question is that we've got a My Futures group working on is how we work and where we work. So that consideration to not having a HQ, and because we're spread over 27 local authorities in the north, actually we have a northeast team that don't have an office, and 60% of our colleagues work remotely in neighbourhoods anyway, so it's a trek for them if they were coming into the HQ for anything. And actually how we can do that differently, how we can use, you know, the WeSpace model, pure office type model to meet up and have those you know, times when you've got to meet up and it's quite right to meet up, and how we can use our schemes in a different way as well, and whether we can in the medium term put some professional working space more in our schemes, and that will bring us closer again to the residents. So yeah, some big debates over the next few weeks.
Okay, then. Well, we're going to open the questions to colleagues on the floor around the various tables and that now. And we may be able to see there's some questions starting to come through there. Been in democracy within dinner. I'll take the one with the most votes. This is a good one. This one, in terms of how do we educate chief execs stroke leaders that just I've added that bit in, that just because we have deployed hardware quickly in people's homes doesn't mean we're meeting the digital requirements of future operating models. Let's not just get carried away because we've done this bit quickly. It needs more than that. So I just wondered, you know, from your perspective, you know, how are you looking at, you know, integrating that technology with the other areas of operations within the business? David, can I go to you again for that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, for me, you know, it's what we feel passionate about. So we are generally trying to be an absolutely digitally focused business. And what I mean by that is not about people working remotely from home, but also about how we use digital services to support our customers. And for about at least 8 to 9 years now, we've been delivering services online to our customers, and those services are incredibly well used by people and have been particularly important during the last few months. But we see the tremendous opportunities to expand that digital service offer to more people. And I totally believe that the vast majority of customers that we're dealing with actually can and actually want to use self-service systems, so long as we still maintain a human sort of face to the organisation. So as long as we're there for people when they need us. So for me, the actual concept of doing it is already well won at RHP. The issue really is about how we go about investing in the right technologies as a sector, because the way we're doing it at the moment will not be sustainable for most organisations. So to deliver truly great digital services for organisations like ours, you have to invest a lot of money over a long time. And most housing associations are not doing that, or indeed can't afford to do it. So going forward, we've got to be looking at ways of collaborating together, investing in platforms together, and building things which people can use across the sector, not just within individual housing associations. But for me, it is absolutely, a fundamental part of the future for what we all do. So long as we match that alongside the human aspect of housing associations, which we all do so well as well.
And sort of, Amanda and Yvonne, I mean, do you think this will accelerate your digital transformation programs now? Because I think, as you said at the outset, the fact you were able to move people remotely in an agile way within a matter of a few days, I can't imagine anybody coming to you saying, "Oh, we've got an 18-month project here." They're not going to get much of a hearing, are they?
Yeah,
Yvonne?
Go on, Yvonne, you go first.
Sorry, yeah, I'd agree absolutely with that. And we've recruited a director of data and digital transformation during all of this. And that's been fantastic. And I think what we're doing with the My Futures group is doing it in a sprint approach. So a methodology that, again, this new person coming in is familiar with, which is short, sharp testing of some theories and of some practices. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. If it does work, great, let's explore it more.
Yeah, from our perspective, I mean, the digital requirements, I think we need to be really clear of what our customers need as well. So one of the things, certainly within Barnsley, and what's been an issue for a lot of our customers, is that although there's some fantastic tech out there, what we've got is quite a lot of our families that haven't actually got access to it still, because they haven't got the Wi-Fi, they can't afford the broadband subscriptions. So I think there's a much broader piece here about place and about that digital connectivity of place. And I know a lot of people have done work on this already, but until we get to a stage where particularly the most vulnerable, and I think what we're going to see is this gap that are in work and those that aren't, and that gap's going to get bigger. And those that have got technology and those that haven't, that gap's going to get bigger. Having said that, we've seen some really good examples of what I might have considered people that were going to really struggle with the tech side of it, that are actually doing fantastically well. So we did a question and answer session with tenants, and we had, some of them were in their 80s that were doing we did Teams discussions, but like this, and having a really good conversation with people. And actually that really got people their voices heard, and a completely different way of doing that and engaging and reduce that loneliness side for people as well. So I think there's all sorts of things here about customer perspective, digital access, that mix between those that have and haven't, and actually ensuring you've got a range of those different ways in which we can still engage with customers. So so I don't know, it's going to be a long journey, an interesting one, but as you say, one of my questions to everybody now will be, if we can do stuff, we've shown we can do stuff really quickly, so we need to do it well and take people with us, I think.
So in your view then, I sort of refer to it as sort of how do we lock in the benefits of the lockdown, because yes, it's been very difficult for a lot of people, but actually there have been some benefits. I just wondered, from your perspective as chief executive, what new ways of working do you think will stick once we really start to come out the other side of this? Again, David, pick you up first.
Well, I think Amanda mentioned it earlier on, which is for me, it's about, you know, hanging on to that pace of change. You know, the fact that we can change so fast, and we've done that over the last few months, just shows you what we're capable of. And I think, you know, it's the wrong word really, but you know, the old excuses about not being able to do stuff, or things taking a long time, or we can't do that, can't do this, have gone, you know, for good organisations. And I think, you know, for me, it just emphasises the value and importance of, in particular, small to medium-sized housing associations, which actually can be incredibly agile and are great places to try things out and to change things. And that's what I want RHP to be like. I want to be an organisation which is, you know, if you like, it's brave enough to try new things out, experiment through things, and to share learning openly across the sector, and to form partnerships with like-minded organisations. And that's really the ethos which I want to take forward coming out of this period.
Mm-hmm. Yvonne?
Yeah, other than the really good digital stuff that's come out of it, I think the one thing that we've learned is we've actually gone back to our board to slim down the corporate plan for 2021, because what we've learned is that we're really good at doing things if there's a focus, you know, which there has been, hasn't there? And what we've been a little bit accused of, quite rightly, when we reflect, is doing a lot of things in the past. So we've zoned down our corporate plan to just 9 projects. So we've got 4 priorities, but we usually have sort of, you know, 30, 40, 50 projects that deliver those 4 key priorities. We've slimmed it down to 9, so we can, as an organisation, just focus on those really strong cross-cutting ones that will make a big difference.
Amanda, final word to you.
I think it's pretty similar to Yvonne's actually. It's about that focus. So focus on a few good things and do them well, but take people with you. And I think that cultural shift on some of this stuff is quite important for me. We've talked about coaching, we've talked about making sure people understand where we're trying to get to. So for me, I think it's focus. It's about really challenging people about what we need to be as an organisation going forward in terms of the culture as well. We've got a great opportunity. We've got a new strategic plan coming out, a new 10-year vision. So actually, for me, the timing of this couldn't have been any better, really. So never waste a good crisis. That's the terminology, isn't it? So I intend to use it to my best.
Okay, taking the question from Hari, this is a good one actually. If you had a change and transformation program running, do you continue with that? Or do you pause that and take time to sort of review? Or do you press the accelerator and use this as a booster really?
Can I start that one?
No,
yeah, well, I mean, we'd already got a number of 4 or 5 key things that we'd picked up and we need to do as an organisation as part of me coming as a new chief exec. And actually everything that's come out of this feeds straight into that anyway. So we were talking about, you know, digital, about getting all that focus on in terms of how we deliver services. So for me, it's about accelerating that and using the best of what's come out of here to use those as sort of new principles that we're working with. So I think, you know, it depends what your transformation is, but for us it was about modernising the organisation and getting the technology right, and coming from, we're probably a little bit further behind from housing associations, I must say, from an Almo perspective. So some of the IT stuff that we were doing was probably a little bit further behind perhaps where David and Yvonne are at the moment. So for me, it's you know, that this was just absolutely perfect in terms of really pushing those new things on, and hopefully get a new contract with the council as well, which leads into all the stuff that we're doing strategically. So for me, I think the transformation programme we had is still valid. We are going to review it and look back again but think about the priorities. But we had 4 or 5 and all those are equally valid now as they were before the COVID situation.
Okay, Yvonne?
Yeah, ours is the same. We have stopped and had a look at it. But what we are doing with the My Futures group, which is a real represented group from across all parts of the business, is the ideas that they come up with will feed into the appropriate strategy. So we've already, because we were looking at agile, etc., we've already done a lot of work around culture, but we've done a lot on well-being during this process, and that will only continue. So anything that's coming out of the My Futures group, for example, that's around well-being, will feed into the people strategy. So I think we'll just need to keep looking at our strategies to just double check that we've got everything that's coming out of the My Futures group.
Okay, and finally, David?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything people have said really. I think it largely depends upon what your change and transformation program actually is and what it's trying to change, and it's trying to change the right things. But for me, you know, the organisations that are going to drive this and actually grow out of it, the organisations that learn and move on. And I think one thing which I've really spent a lot of time thinking about recently is the importance of resetting our service offers in line with what customers want now and can afford going forward. So one of the real issues to me is, you know, we're going to be dealing with a group of customers who are even poorer going forward, and that's going to have real implications, I think, in terms of, you know, what they want us to do and what they can afford us to do. So I think just it's having a little bit of a pause to think about that and making sure that, you know, we're changing in the right way to support that is really, really critical. But equally, I really like what Yvonne and Amanda were talking about in terms of that sense of trying to simplify change. You know, yes, let's change things, but let's not try and do 55 things. Let's try and do, you know, 5 things really well. And that's certainly a lesson that I can learn, you know, RHP.
Okay. I'm going to try something now with the technology and ask Diana. We've got a question from Kim Ellis. I'm hoping Kim is not camera shy. If you're not Kim, Diana, could you try and bring Kim on the stage so she can ask her question directly to our panel? Should have some mood music to play here while this is sort of happening. I'll give another couple.
Yay!
Here we go. Hi, Kim.
I dislike you so much, Ian. I can't even express how much I dislike you right now. Oh, my camera's still off, so that's not as bad. Yeah, so my question was around a lot, well, certainly within our organisation, the services that we've been delivering have been emergency services, and a lot of staff needed to be repurposed into other roles so that we could avoid as much furloughing as possible, similar, I imagine, to a lot of other organisations. Whilst we've been doing this, our customer satisfaction performance has increased. Customers have a lot more empathy and understanding for our services. We have identified greater connections with our customers than we've ever had before. Communication has increased and improved exponentially. And that connection that we've created, my question is really around, how do we manage as we start not to go back, because I think the focus always has to be on going forward, but how do we manage customer expectations? Because we can't now, I don't believe, say we can't do that, because actually we've shown that we can in circumstances. So it's really around, how do we manage expectations? How do we manage their expectations as well as our own? And how do we communicate that with our customers in a way that is honest and ethical and all of those wonderful things?
Okay, thank you very much, Kim. And yes, I've just realised the difficulty you might have had coming on the stage. So thank you so much for taking up the offer and being our first member to ask a question on stage. So Yvonne, could I ask you to come on first?
Yeah, absolutely. I think what we did what we did early on was get our most engaged residents in groups, and every fortnight we had sessions with them. So we were asking them as we've gone through the process, how are they? How are they feeling? What do they think about this idea of the service? Or if we do that, how should we communicate? My director of homes and services, Catherine Fox-Rogers, has been running that and running it really well. I dived on there this week because I wanted to ask them about their thoughts of their own behaviours in the future. So there's been quite a lot of talk, and especially interesting on WhatsApp's groups that Amanda's mentioned about, will customers and residents' behaviours changed? What they were really honest with me was saying that they do think it'll take a long time before they feel confident. And it's some of them haven't been out of their homes at all since lockdown because they're shielding, they're vulnerable. Some people have continued along with government guidelines. Because of the nature of our group, we kept as much service going as possible and worked with our contractors around, have they got the right PPE, have they redone their risk assessment, monitoring all of that. So we did keep our services going. And our routine repairs dipped, as you would imagine. They're back on the rise now. But what they were saying is what they wanted from us is to keep up the communication to help them build their confidence. They really felt that they'd got a lot from us and they understood what was happening to their services now, to the things that we provide or don't provide or stopped or started again. And for them, it was about confidence. So we'll keep up that regular communication with them. And we're going to try and utilise maybe this type of software to hold our forums that we normally have, regional forums, to actually do that. So that's what we're going to try and do to think about future behaviour, really.
Okay, Amanda?
I think for us, and in a way, we were similar to most other organisations. I think we stopped most of our repairs and we've now turned that back on again. But I think it's that expectation from customers. I think one of the things that we've learned from this, and it's come out from everybody else, is that we've got a much better dialogue now with customers. And I think I don't want to lose that. But what I don't want is staff to say, well, we started doing everything else now, we can't do that anymore. So I think there's almost thinking of the ways that we're working now, how do we continue that dialogue in a better way and a more efficient way? There'll still be some people that need some face-to-face stuff, but a lot of people have adapted and done this. So it's almost, how do we get the best of both? How do we get the best of still delivering great services, having that now new relationship? And I think that's what's come out. We've got a better and more informed relationship. Think about some of the discussions we've had on rent arrears and sort of people that have been struggling with rents and actually been proactive for some of those discussions now, which before would have been sending letters out. Now we're having a really informed dialogue and discussion with people. So I think there's a whole way in which, as a sector, we can start thinking about those relationships with our customers. It builds really nicely on the sort of the green paper and about listening to customers and the tenant voice stuff as well. So I think there's, how do we get those services back on again, but use some spare capacity that we've got in terms of new ways of working to help us keep that dialogue going in that really important discussion with customers.
And finally, David?
Yeah, I mean, I think Kim's question is an absolutely fascinating one, really, for me, because it's something that's really struck me. That the last 3 months, in some ways, has really simplified what we all do. And on the back of that, like Kim, I've seen our customer satisfaction go up, not down. It's gone up during the pandemic. And that's partly because what we've been doing has been a lot simpler and people can understand it and it's very immediate. And secondly, because I think people can see a real sort of human connection between what we're doing and their lives, really. Going forward, what I think is really, really important is that, we use this as an opportunity to reset our service offers. Again, people have mentioned this during the webinar, but to really think about, what do we do and what don't we do, and on what basis? What are customers telling us they most need from us going forward. And then secondly, I think, setting ourselves some really clear standards around delivery. And my sense is that, this is now we can do a lot better in housing, actually. A lot of the standards we're setting ourselves around customer service, are not cutting edge. They're not really in line with sort of modern expectations these days. And that's partly because of the sort of technology we're using. But people want quick, immediate responses to most things these days. They're not prepared to wait 2-3 days for a response. And the third thing is, we've just got to deliver. We've actually got to make sure that we are super consistent with delivery going forward. Whatever we do, we've absolutely got to meet our promises. And the days of letting people down or falling short or not responding to people have to go. And that's not most of the time we're doing that. But it's the occasions when we're falling short of that which do such damage to our relationships with customers. So they're the three things for me, Ian.
Okay, I've let the sort of discussion go on slightly longer than programmed, but I think that's because we're getting so many questions and it's a really good sort of quality discussion. But can I finish with one final question from Colin around safeguarding and well-being? Because you've all mentioned this, and you've in previous discussions you've all said staff are working sort of or trying to work remotely. It's not ideal for them, and sort of the term I use is you've got this organisational momentum at this moment in time. So what happens when that starts to sort of drop off? I just wondered, are there any specific processes or systems that you guys have got in place within your organisation that is managing that staff welfare and their personal well-being? Because it's going to be absolutely critical to do the things you've mentioned, David, about keeping the service and the service consistency going. Yvonne, could I come to you first on that?
Yes, certainly. We've got a dozen mental health first aider trainers in the business, which actually we started at the beginning of the year, and they've come into their own and they've been really helpful. We started a weekly Wellbeing Wednesday sort of roundup with lots of tips and hints. And as I say, coming out of My Futures, one of the themes is about welfare. So we're acting on it all the time. I think that will continue. We'll invest more in mental health training because that will not just help our colleagues, but help our colleagues help our residents as recession kicks in, as we continue going through this, which I think will be helpful. But as I say, coming out of the My Futures group, those themes will get fed through to the appropriate strategies and plans. So we'll never lose all this feedback. It will just go into our planning approach.
Okay, David?
Yeah, again, for me, a really, really great question, and one which we paid a lot of attention to. And I think what's become very apparent is that people have experienced the last 3 months in incredibly different ways. So some people have absolutely loved, remote working and working at home for a whole variety of reasons. Other people have had huge challenges around doing that. And what has become very apparent to us is the importance of really thinking about people's individual circumstances. And I think Amanda mentioned earlier on about the point about there's a tremendous opportunity for us to adapt our mindset around how people work. So I don't care, what hours people work or when they work and where they work. It's for me, it's simply about, what's their contribution and how do they achieve. But equally, allowing people some room who are really struggling with remote working. So one of the things we've tried to do is to be very open about saying to people, if you're having a tough time, please tell us because we want to help. If that means somebody else covering your work, that's fine. We'll manage that and we'll deal with it. So I think it's not so much systems, Ian, but it's really about a mindset and a culture and creating a very human connection between the people you're working with and treating people as individuals, really, and making sure people feel comfortable asking for help because people do need help, but in different ways.
And final word to yourself, Amanda.
I think one of the lines we've used is it's okay to not be okay. And I think that's really important to have those conversations. And luckily we've just finished doing quite a lot of training with our managers on mental health. We've got, like Yvonne, we've got our mental health first aiders as well. So actually for us, I think having that managers that feel equipped to have those sorts of conversations and regularly checking with people. And we've done some staff survey stuff as well. So we did some surveys to find out where people were. I think we were looking at the physical well-being as well as the mental health well-being. Physical stuff's easy to do, isn't it? The mental one is about having those really good discussions with people and actually telling people it's okay to say that you're struggling a bit. And I think on that, for me, if people can be open enough to do that, then we can have some really sensible conversations about, so what workload can we do and how can we handle that as an organisation? I think that's going to be really important in terms of the way that the work going forward.
Okay, we've way exceeded our time there, but I think that was really, really useful in terms of because it was such a big issue, and we probably could have had another half an hour on this alone. So normally I'd sort of ask the audience now if we could thank our speakers in the usual way, but I'm sure everybody's in their studies and offices and kitchen tables as we go through. But thank you, Amanda, Yvonne, and David. That was excellent. Thank you for participating in our platform as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.